This video is going to be an explanation of what 1 and 2 star gems are ultimately useful and even more useful than many 5-star gems, provided that you don't need the resonance. And I've made some graphics for each of these gems to make it a little bit easier to understand as I'm going through them, because it is a lot. And every gem will be timestamped below, and I'll only be going over gems that are worth using. So if you don't see me cover the gem, then it's not really worth it, except for maybe some niche use case. But each gem will have a tier on this graphic, as you can see here, like this Pain Clasp being an S tier, a short explanation of its ability and its bonuses, and in the corner here I'll have a graphic to help you know at a glance if it's useful in PvE, PvP, or both. And on that topic, many people would ask me if it's worth using 1 or 2 star gems in PvP instead of some 5 stars. And the short answer is you should be worrying more about your secondary stats than your resonance. So as long as you aren't dropping your resonance a crazy amount, then yes, you can and maybe even should swap some of these 2 stars or 1 stars in. And for PvE, you really shouldn't consider your resonance at all. The bonuses from the gems will almost always be better until maybe you have rank 7 or 8 5-star gems, and at that point you shouldn't really be too pressed for damage. So you can always swap in these gems for PvE, and I have a video where I highlight this in full effect, which I will link below. But basically I'm just showing myself doing the same amount of DPS at about 2200 reso and 4,500 reso, just based on some gem synergies. So now let's get into the gems. I will be posting all of these graphics on my Discord server in the gem channels, so check the description for a link to my Discord so you can check these out. Berserker's Eye. Basically what this is going to do is increase all damage you deal, and then additionally it will give you a little bit of a crit hit chance increase as you rank it up. So at rank 10 you're going to be getting 16% damage increase and 2% crit hit chance. So this gem is going to be useful in both PvE and PvP. However, in PvP you need to consider that you're going to also be taking an extra 5% increased damage. So if you are lower reso, or if you are lower secondary stats, then you might want to reconsider using this in PvP. You have to play it by ear. So if you're more of a DPS character like DH or Tempest, you can get away with this a little bit easier. And of course in PvE, this one's always going to be good. Next we have Carson's Invigoration. So what this is going to do is flat out increase your primary attack speed, and then it also increase the damage of your primary attack by a little bit. So at rank 10, again, 16% attack speed increase, 2% primary attack damage increase. This is another one that you could use in both PvE and PvP if you have it. Just make sure that your primary attack speed is something that's useful for you. So if you're not really using primary attack, you shouldn't really be using this gem. But nonetheless, it is a good gem to use. Chain Death. So this one is going to increase all damage you deal, except you have to be hitting more than 1 target at a time. This is going to be good on classes like DH, Wizard even, but you need to be able to target multiple enemies at all times to get the biggest bonus from this gem. So that's why I'm putting it in the B tier, since it's conditionally active and it's an up to bonus, but nonetheless it is something you could use. I wouldn't recommend using it so much in PvP, as it's going to be hard to really hit that many targets. You're probably only going to be hitting 2-3 targets, if you're lucky 4, and at rank 10 that would only be a 10% increase to damage at the most. So this one's definitely better for just PvE. Now we got Everlasting Torment. So this is, of course, an S tier gem. It's going to add a dot to all of your crit hits, and that's per enemy. So this is a very strong gem for you to swap into your build, especially if you need a dot. You can pair this with the Pain Clasp very well, and it will do great things for you. And on top of the dot and the damage that it does, every enemy that is affected by this explosion is going to increase your attack speed. So at rank 10, each enemy is going to give you a 6% increase in attack speed. So this isn't going to show too well on the dummy, but when you're in a dungeon and there's 5 monsters around you that are all hit by this, your attack speed is going to be very, very high. And this also works well in PvP, for 1 being a dot, and 2, you can get 2-3 people around you that are hit by this, and that's an 18% increase to your attack speed. So S tier gem all around, I would recommend it. Freedom and Devotion. So this one is going to increase the duration of all of your summons, and then also give them a little bit of a damage increase. So of course this is something I would only recommend using on Necro, and that's if you are using summons for your build. There are many builds where you're not using it at all. This becomes useless there, but if you are using summons and you need them to stay around, so this is especially going to be useful for AFK farming if that's what you're into, or if you have a very heavy summons build, I would recommend it. In PvP, you're going to have to kind of have the same considerations. A lot of the summons builds aren't too great, but there is a resurgence now with the Necros and using summons to give them some damage immunity, so that could work well with that build. Now, Pain of Subjugation, another S tier gem, which increases all damage you deal to enemies under loss of control. And now loss of control is honestly very easy to put onto enemies. Any type of slow is also considered loss of control, which you can get from some runes, from some of your gems, and then even other loss of control effects that other people are putting onto enemies will help trigger this. So you can get a flat 16% damage increase at rank 10. And then also, if you were to be using this in PvP, it's also going to reduce the damage that you take under loss of control by up to 4% at rank 10. So you could use this in both PvE and PvP. Now, the Black Rose. When Windwalk was popular, this gem was the bane of my existence because it would hit me while I'm still in Windwalk and stun me. So this is a very nice gem for PvP only, as it can stun anybody at any time. So I would not recommend you using this for PvE at all, as it doesn't really give you any bonuses, but it can do good things for you in PvP. Now, Trickshot Gem, which will decrease the energy use of your channeled abilities. So things like Strafe and some of the beams you can shoot out on Wizard. This is a decent gem to use, and it can give you a good amount of extra time on these channeled abilities, but I'm only going to put it at the B tier because a lot of times it's just better to have the damage than to have the duration on these abilities, especially on DH, where you can just use Pain Sour and the Chest Essence that will recharge your Strafe whenever your primary attack hits. So you can kind of get away with not using this. And of course, you can use it in both PvE and PvP if you really are using channel skills as a large portion of your damage in PvP. Now, Blessed Pebble flat out will just increase the duration of beneficial effects. And beneficial effects in Diablo Immortal are vast. It's not just your buff abilities. It's also these small buffs that you get from your abilities, or from some eternal gear, and many, many other places. You can see with this eternal gear, for Storm Fury, my attack speed is getting increased for 3 seconds. But because of all of my beneficial effect duration, this time is more like 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds. So beneficial effect duration is not just for buffs. That's why it is such a good stat to have on all of your pieces that you can. So at rank 10, it's going to give you 12%. And then also, this is going to give you a good amount of movement speed after using any buff ability. So I would recommend anybody to use this, especially if you don't have 100% uptime on some skills, as having 100% uptime can also make you do more damage. Heartstone. So this one's going to increase the duration of your absorb shields, and then also reduce duration of loss of control while these absorb shields are active. So if you are playing a build or a class that has a lot of shields, this one can be very, very good. And you want these shields to be big. You don't want these to be tiny shields, because this is only increasing duration. It's not increasing the amount of shield. If you have a shield and it gets removed very quickly, then this gem is doing nothing for you. However, if you have shields that can last for a little bit, then this is going to be very good for you, because that whole time you have that shield, you're also going to reduce the duration of loss control by a lot. Even at rank 10, it's all the way up at 24%. So I would recommend this one for PvP, not so much for PvE. Eye of the Unyielding. So this is not the best gem, but if anything, I would recommend this one more for PvP, because you're doing more continual damage. So this can increase the damage of your dots if you're very dot heavy build, and then also to reduce the damage that you take from dots. And it's not just dots, it's all continual damage, but that is just the most common occurrence of continual damage. So for Necros, this can be very good. For Wizards, this can be very good in PvP. So that's where I would recommend using it if you would use it anywhere. And similarly, we have Misery Elixir. This one is an S tier gem for PvP, and it is also still very good in PvE. It's going to increase the duration of all harmful effects. So that's loss of control, that's a lot of your dots, and especially on players, this is very, very strong. If you're a dot heavy build like a Necro, or if you're a Satyr, you have a lot of CC and dots on top of that, this is going to be very nice. You'll even see many of the strong Satyrs will always swap this gem in, even if they're 6, 7, 8,000 resonance. Because on top of increasing the duration, it's also going to give you a little bit more damage to enemies under harmful effects. So this will stack very nicely with other gems, even a Pain of Subjugation. And if you're using this with a Pain of Subjugation, that's going to be 18% damage to enemies under loss of control, basically, at rank 10 for both of those. Now we have Lucent Watcher. This is a very good 1-star gem, which will reduce the duration of all loss of control onto you, and then also reduce the damage you take during loss of control. This is something I would always be swapping in when I was playing Barb, because my resistance wasn't too high, and this helped me make up for that lack of resistance. The 24% reduction in loss of control durations is very, very strong and can help you go from being just thrown around all the time to being able to actually fight back, because these loss of control effects won't last so long. So I would recommend trying this out if you do find yourself using CC a lot and you're playing a tankier class like Crusader or Barb. Now I have Entropic Well. So this one's going to increase your skill damage, and on top of that, increase your skill attack speed. To understand what skill attack speed is, that's how fast you can throw out a skill. So if you're playing Wizard and you're playing a super spammy build, having more skill attack speed will let you put those skills out faster. And what's nice about Entropic Well is it is always active, so you can get this 18% increased damage to your skills at all times. This makes it very nice on Wizard, on Necro, and on a lot of classes that aren't super heavy on primary attack. But even on those classes, it is still going to be doing a lot for you. On to Havoc Bearer. If you have dashing abilities, then I would recommend you try out this gem, as it's going to give you up to 18% damage increase after you dash. And on top of that, it's going to give you 4% attack speed with it. So this is a very good gem. There are better options, as this one is only conditionally active. It's not always active, but it's still a very good bonus, and which can give you a good amount of damage both in PvE and in PvP. And then the newest 1-star gem, the Faltergrasp. So this gem is going to disable the dashing abilities of enemies when you critically hit them. The duration that the dashes are disabled goes up per rank, of course. And on top of this, it's going to reduce the enemy's movement speed. You're going to remove their dashing ability and slow them down. So this is a very good counter to Tempests specifically. And each time I'm hit with this gem, it ruins me. So this is very annoying. It can do a lot for you. It can stop you from getting killed. It can stop enemies from running away. So I would recommend trying this gem out for PvP. So now on to the 2-star gems. So the first one we're going to go over is Battleguard. So this will decrease all melee damage you take. So any damage that is dealt in a small circle around you. So if you're standing on idle, if you're Barb or Satyr, this can be very, very, very strong. You won't get this damage reduction to the DHs and stuff in the back, but a lot of times you're going to be on top of whoever you're fighting, and that will reduce the damage you're taking very, very greatly. And on top of this, as you rank it up, you'll be able to move unhindered through enemies while below certain HP thresholds, all the way up to 60%. So once you're below 60% HP, you can move unhindered through enemies, which could really help you gather people up around the idol and keep them on top of you even. Bloody Reach. So this is basically the DH gem. This gem is going to give you a lot of damage in both PvP and PvE based on the distance you are from your opponent. So of course that's what DH is trying to do, is keep distance, and you get rewarded for that by having up to 24% increased damage. And on top of this, you have a chance to slow enemy movement speed by 35%. It's only 1.2%, but if you're using Strafe, you're hitting so frequently that it is a very high chance for you to get this slow onto enemies. And because this is a flat damage increase, this is an S tier gem. So if you are playing a class that can keep some distance, try this out. It's honestly better in PvP than it is in PvE, because you're not going to be too worried about the distance you're keeping a lot of times when you're just running around in PvE. Now, Cutthroat Grin. Basically, this one will increase your crit hit chance when you're attacking enemies from behind them, as well as give you a little bit more damage when you're attacking them from behind. So this has the potential to be very, very good. However, a lot of times it's hard for you to legitimately get behind someone, or for it to count as you're being behind someone. So this can work very well with Wizards, with Tempest. They have a lot of freedom in movement. I had tried this one out in PvE for a while, so I would see good damage on some bosses where I'm actually able to get behind them, but again, some of them you just literally cannot get behind, or it won't register as you being behind them, and you won't see this extra bonus. So it is a little bit more conditional, which puts this one at a B tier. Now, Follower's Burden. So this is another gem that favors summons builds, because based on how many summons you have active, this will increase the damage that you deal. That's all damage you deal. So at Reg 10, this is going to increase the damage you deal by 3% for each summon. If you have 6 summons up, you're getting the maximum. What this does as well is decreases damage that your summons take. So especially if you're using this Necro build in BGs that gives you some damage immunity because of those summons, this can really help you, one, do more damage by having those summons up, and 2, keep your summons up longer, which will keep you alive longer. So if you do use a lot of summons, I recommend trying this out in both PvE and PvP. Now, Power and Command. So this one will switch between giving you a boost in skill damage and a boost in primary attack damage. And each time this switches, it has a chance to dispel harmful effects on you, which makes it very good for PvP, because this is always switching no matter what. So at any point, this could proc and have all of your effects dispelled. This is really nice though when you engage a fight and you're running away, you have a bunch of dots on you, and then your stance switches basically, and now you don't have any dots on you or anything. This gem is very, very good on classes that use both primary and skill damage, but if your class only uses skill damage, it's not going to be as good. So look at what class you're playing, but this is a very, very good gem to have, as the percentages are very high. Now we're on to Fervent Fang. It's a little bit harder of a gem to rank up, as you can only get it from a few places, but this will increase your damage up to a certain number based on how long you've been in combat, and also provide a small flat damage increase to elites and boss monsters. So when you're doing anything where you're going to attack someone or some monster for more than a second, this gem is very, very good. So this is amazing in raids, especially very good in dungeons when you're fighting bosses, and this even is good in PvP. It does have sort of a ramp up ability, so your effectiveness with it in PvP could vary just depending. So I'd recommend it more for PvE, but you can still effectively use this in PvP. The Abiding Curse. Basically, your attacks have a chance to curse enemies and reduce their attack and movement speed. And these cursed enemies will take more damage from you. So this is a gem that's very easy to proc in PvP. It applies loss of control, so this is a very good gem to use in PvP. And this will stack with other things like Pain of Subjugation or Misery Elixir. And so you can kind of work out some synergies with a lot of different things. So I would recommend this one for PvP if you were to use it. Kir Sling. So when you are attacked, there's a chance that you will release a burst of light and blind all nearby enemies. So a lot of times if you start attacking someone and then you just immediately stop and you can't tell what's going on, that's because you just got hit by Kir Sling. So this is a very annoying gem to deal with when the enemy has it, because you attacking is what initiates it. So this is a very good gem for you to use in PvP. Doesn't do anything for you in PvE really. But on top of this, the Kir Sling applies total loss of control. So if you do have a chip of stone flesh, this works out very, very well with it. So I would recommend trying this one out for PvP. Pain Clasp. This is, of course, an S tier gem. Increases all damage done to enemies under dots, which are very easy to apply. This is your burns, your bleeds, your poisons. Everlasting Torment is one of them. And then on top of this, it will increase your movement speed per enemy afflicted by any type of dot that's around you. So if you have these dots and you're applying them to enemies, it's also going to make you much, much faster. So it's harder for people to outrun you. You can move through dungeons quicker. You can move around the map quicker. You can do everything quicker. Ironbane. So when you are channeling an ability, there's a chance that it will dissolve the armor of an enemy and make them take more damage based on the rank of the gem. Additionally, this will also reduce the movement speed of the enemy that's affected by this armor dissolve effect. So this can be used both in PvE and PvP. I would say it's a little bit better in PvP, honestly, than it is in PvE if you were to use it. And you have to be using channeled abilities, of course. So, this could be more useful on DH or Wizard, but it is only a B tier gem, so there are better options. Mother's Lament. This gem is going to greatly increase your critical hit chance anytime you start attacking. And just like most things, 6 seconds for 20 seconds. So at rank 10, it's going to give you 32% crit hit chance. And this is one of the few places in the game, that you can get critical hit chance, especially in this high of a number. So this is an S tier gem for both PvE and PvP. The burst damage that you are going to be able to do with having 32% extra crit is immense. Anyone that's near you when this effect ends will have some spikes shot out towards them, which will make them bleed and take a little bit of damage, which is also a dot, which can stack with other things. So I wouldn't rely on this dot, but it is there. But Viper's Bite. So this will apply a poison, which is a dot, and also reduce enemy attack speed. So this stacks with other dots like Seeping Bile, Everlasting Torment, Bleeds, other things from your abilities. So a lot of times you will see people stacking dots. They'll have all of these things. So they hit you a couple times, and then now you have four dots ticking on you. This works well with Pain Clasp to help keep enemies in dots. And also in PvP, it's just nice to have a dot on an enemy so that if they run away with 1 HP, they'll still end up dying. So this is an S tier gem that I would recommend more so for PvP. But if you need a dot, this is a very good gem to add into your PvE build. Say if you're trying to pair it with a Pain Clasp or something. Now I have Igneous Scorn. So your critical hits are going to explode, but it's only once every 6 seconds. And then after this explosion, all damage you deal is going to be increased. And at rank 10, it's only 10%, and it's only for 2 seconds. So if the times were better on this gem, this would be a very, very nice gem. But because of those limitations, it keeps it down to a B tier. And you can use this effectively to the same extent in both PvE and PvP, but you might get more use out of it in PvE. Grim Rhythm. So similar to Fervent Fang, this is going to have a ramp up effect and increase your attack speed up to 24% at rank 10. And while you are at full stacks, that's full stacks, so not while you're getting up there or you're close. Once you're at full, your movement speed is also increased. So this can be very, very useful in PvE, while it still has some benefit in PvP, as attack speed is always good to have. But because it's harder to level up, I would recommend you get Fervent Fang first, no matter what class. And once it's around rank 8 maybe, then you can start getting a Grim Rhythm. Mourneskull. So if you look at the tooltip for this gem, it is a wall of texts. However, basically, when you start to attack an enemy, the Lich King will come out and strike. If he hits 3 enemies, then you will get the maximum bonus of the damage increase. And this increases all damage you deal for 6 seconds. So if you hit 3 enemies, you're going to go at rank 10, you get 36%. And even at rank 6 with 26%, that is more of a bonus than any other rank 10 damage increasing gem. So this is a very, very nice gem to use, especially once you can get it past rank 6 by using Telluric Pearls at this point. And so on top of giving you this flat damage increase, every second that the effect is active, there will be 2 spirits that will shoot out towards nearby enemies and explode. So that's a little bit of an extra damage boost from the gem. This is just happening without you doing anything. And then the newest gem, Specter Glass. So similar to how Mourneskull has a higher bonus than other gems, this also does too. So anytime you crit hit, it's going to cause that enemy to take a % increased damage. And so at rank 8 is when you achieve the same level as all of many other rank 10 gems. And if you get this gem to rank 10, it has the second highest damage increase of any gem. And this damage increase is per enemy. So it's not only 6 seconds every 20 seconds. It happens per enemy. And on top of that, you also will have an increased crit hit chance on these affected enemies. So this makes it a very, very nice gem to use, both PvE and PvP, because you're going to get a crazy damage increase. And stacking this with everything else, that increases your burst damage. So in PvP, you can one-shot people a little bit easier, two-shot, get a lot of damage in very quickly. And of course, the same thing with PvE. 28% damage increase at rank 10 is very, very, very good. And so that covers all of the 1 and 2 star gems that are worth using. So with all that being said, I would like to thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can now join for as little as 99 cents, and that'll give you a loyalty badge, some emojis you can use. And if you have any other questions about anything game related, please leave them down below. As well, you can check out my Discord, hit me up there, ask some questions there, check out some builds, like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Peace.